We're now going to move on to our next session of the day, which again is a completely different look and a different industry, which I think is what's making the content here so interesting and thought-provoking. And we are going to be joined by both representatives from both Pernod Ricard and Meta, and they are going to chat to us about how you can mix strategy and flawless execution. In case you aren't aware, Pernod Ricard is a brand with a portfolio of 200 premium brands, and they're a leader in premium wines and spirits. In the last few years, across the board, that industry has seen a tough climate with tightened budgets and fierce competition for customers, much as we've seen, in fact, in other industries as we've been talking today. However, they have their own approach to this, and they've taken a really unique cut at this, partnering with Meta, and they're leaning really hard into creativity and innovation to help them stand out in the crowded market that we keep talking about. We're going to be joined by Michael, who's the Global Consumer Journey Director at Pernod Ricard. He's an international consumer marketer and a digital champion with a love of data and a desire to push transformational capacity. He's got 16 years of experience, regional and local, and in both consumer and luxury good industries. And Marie, who's the global client partner from Meta, has actually spent 20 years in the beauty and luxury industry, and she's now moved into tech and digital. And beyond offering personalized media solutions at Meta, her mission is really to advise leading groups on their digital transformation with a very specific ROI mindset. So I think we're in for a really exciting session here. And at this point, it's my great pleasure to turn things over to Michael and Marie.
Hello, thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Emarsys at SAP. We're thrilled to be here and to share with you all the Pernod Ricard cases on our new creative language. And I'm letting Michael maybe present a bit Pernod Ricard.
Yes, just very quickly. I know Sarah already touched upon it, but Pernod Ricard is a world leader in premium spirits. We are across the world 20,000 people strong across the different teams. A lot of our premium brands and experiences are available in 75 countries. And as what Sarah already mentioned, we have the most extensive portfolio in spirits in the category. So you might see some familiar brands here, such as Jameson Irish Whiskey, Absolut Vodka. For the Scotch whiskey lovers, you have Chivas and Valentine's, and then also champagne lovers, Perrier-Jouët, and so much more, right? Both at global and local level. But we're here to talk about our partnership together with Marie with Meta. And so I think instinctively you would think that Meta is first and foremost, obviously, an ecosystem of media platforms. And so you would think, it's probably counterintuitive to work with Meta with its media expertise to work on something like creative excellence. But actually, I would tend to disagree with that, because our aim at Pernod Ricard is to optimize our campaigns, and one way to do that is to develop content that is fit for audience, and therefore it has to be fit for platform. And what better way to assure that content and assets are fit for a platform than working directly with the platform itself? So it makes sure, or it helps ensure that the content and assets and creative assets that we develop are really tailored to the codes of the platform.
Yes, this isn't always widely known, but at Meta, we have dedicated services to guide and support clients with creative excellence. This is where the creative shop teams come in. These people come often from creative agencies or art director themselves, and they really help guide clients into applying best practices within our platforms, with Facebook, with Instagram. They also help brands connect with digital creative agencies or with creators, which are pioneers themselves of our visual native language. So this is really something that we leverage a lot with our clients, because we tend to have some traditional clients who has a first instinct to be TV first, to allocate large production budgets that consume most of their resources. And we tend to come later, and there's not enough room sometimes to adapt fit for platform assets. So we are here to really educate the clients to have this digital first mindset and create content fit for platform, because it's quite different. And when a brand does that, it really enhances performance of campaigns in a massive way. And that's what we've done with Pernod Ricard.
Absolutely. And it's hard to talk about, creative excellence without talking about how Meta's platforms are evolving. I think we all know, and we've probably heard it already in the first part of the program, in terms of just acknowledging the drastic evolution that's happening in this space. So we can see this shift is fundamentally changing, obviously, the Meta's ecosystem, and it's largely driven, obviously, by the role of AI. And so this is something that we have to obviously take into account if we talk about creative excellence in this space.
Yeah, maybe a rhetorical question here, but with AI being central in the way we work now, do you know in percentage to what extent creative impacts the performance of your campaign? 70%. We can definitely say that we have entered a new era for advertising creativity. We have now a new mantra that creative is the new targeting. You no longer have to find the right audiences, but rather sculpt different messages by building, learning, and iterating through enough diverse content to be able to engage with your consumers, to be able to have people discover your business and result in deeper engagement.
Right, and the way it works is basically you have these cutting edge AI tools then, right, that will allow us a future where we're no longer going to be as constrained by lack of resources. And you have generative AI and tech doing the heavy lifting on constant, personalized, vast iterations of any given asset or content, while your creative partner or talent, in this case, the creators, can focus on deeper, richer ideation.
Yes, and basically, creators are here also to complement the corporate tone of voice of a brand, because their authentic tone can really help out brands build deeper engagement. So again, leveraging creators, leveraging culture, communities is key in this diversification strategy of assets.
Yeah. So I think it's key to see what creators can bring, right, in terms of boosting performance of any given brand.
Yeah, so we have a study that also proves how partnering with creators can help you drive business outcomes. It was done in November 2023, and it really shows that 55% of people surveyed agreed that creators really help them discover new brands. And then we also have 53% that say that they tend more to buy or purchase a brand or an item that was recommended by a creator than a brand itself. There's also something else that is quite interesting to know when you leverage a creator. They really play a crucial and complementary role versus corporate and branded communications. They help foster deeper, more personal connections with users. They allow also brands to achieve a stronger cultural resonance. And more importantly, they enable easy local adaptation, in contrast to generic assets that can be given by a central department to all markets. So by working with creators, brands can truly localize their content to better engage their local audience.
Right. And maybe to give sort of meat on the bone in terms of what Marie is saying here, we're going to be sharing obviously some cases or examples from Pernod Ricard, and they really create quite different approaches, right? So the first example that we'll share shortly is basically how does a central brand team drive that collaboration and end up localizing or personalizing assets that are fit to the needs of multiple markets. And then also we'll have examples going to France, going to India, in terms of how creators can help, and AI as well can help local teams to be able to create those fit for platform and fit for audience assets. And additionally, across all of the cases, we'll see examples of ways to work with creators. So one being that you work with creators that are well-versed in AI, highly skilled, almost like true art directors, obviously in their space. And also what it looks like working with hybrid creators who are just as well-versed, obviously with tech, with social, with generative AI these days, but are also taking the center stage in front of the camera as their role of influencers. So probably let's go to that first example with, I think I mentioned for the champagne lovers out there, we have Perrier-Jouët. Perrier-Jouët is our exquisite, amazing champagne brand for those that haven't tried it yet. But when you look at Perrier-Jouët as a brand, it is anchored in art and nature. Right. So one of the things what our central brand team did was to really collaborate with Meta and see how can we partner with creators that are skilled with AI, almost like artists in themselves, which obviously speaks to the brand ethos of Perrier-Jouët, and be able to centrally produce assets that are, and we talk about personalization in this masterclass, personalized and localized at the market level. What we have done is you have sort of an example, classic for any brand. In the middle, you will see central brand assets that were produced for the hero campaign for Perrier-Jouët, which was already used for year one, right? And the idea was, how can we continue to talk about and do the storytelling for the brand without obviously also having creative fatigue with regards to the audiences, but staying true to this hero campaign and the crux of this campaign of Perrier-Jouët. And so this is where the goal was, how can we extend that, introduce fresh content to keep the engagement of the audiences?
So to achieve this, we briefed the creator Andres Resinger, who leveraged the power of AI to generate a wide range of localized assets. He reimagined the Perrier-Jouët iconic flower to seamlessly integrate it into buildings in key cities and key markets.
So what's the result of that? Basically, you have this iconic flower of Perrier-Jouët really materialized across the cities. The central brand team of Perrier-Jouët was able to develop this personalized or localized assets from, as you can see here, the Miami version, the New York iteration, all the way to Europe and all the way to Asia and Hong Kong. AI obviously was used to develop sort of the different city backgrounds, as well as the animation of the iconic Perrier-Jouët flower. And then obviously some post-production help just to refine some elements like lighting, audio, sound, etc.
And yeah, beyond the creative aspect, we also do support Pernod Ricard on the pillar of marketing effectiveness. So we conducted some measurements behind this initiative, and we saw the results were really striking. These assets, along with the corporate ones, the business as usual ones, help significantly reduce the cost of throughplay by 43% and of 3-second throughplay by 20%, while boosting incremental reach of 34%. So amazing results.
Listen, we're happy with the results, and we would like to see more of that. Let's go to quickly a second quick case, just to look at another way an approach to work with creators. So we have Ricard. Ricard is one of our flagship brands, obviously for Pernod Ricard. It's our anise flavored aperitif, which comes and hails from the south of France. So we have here the campaign Born à Marseille, which translates as Born in Marseille, for those who are familiar with Marseille as an emblematic and iconic city. But basically, what's the difference of this approach to the previous one is working with creators, not because we wanted to leverage them using tools like AI, but working with creators because they know the codes of the platform. They know the Reels language, which we know is essential and critical to a platform and ecosystem like Meta. And this is really underlining the role that creative asset diversification and the role that it could play to boost performance. And so when you look at it, as you can see on the left-hand side, basically you have sort of the global central assets for this campaign, which is really highlighting, bartenders and barmaids with a very inclusive approach. But one of the challenges that the brand team actually realized was that maybe there was a messaging or storytelling and content gap to be able to speak to the younger demographics, 18 to 24-year-old, a generation which may or may not know how best to enjoy a good glass of Ricard.
Yeah, so as a result, they asked us to create additional content with a focus on the drinking strategy. So along with Helmut, the agency, we decided to showcase the proper way to drink a Ricard with lots of water, lots of ice, but as well with a funnier approach with the cocktail recipe angle with lots of flavored syrups.
Right. And of course, as you see from the second, third video, even the rightmost image, which were then created with the Reels language code, these are all in line with the brand universe, right? With the look and feel. It's aligned with the brand DNA, which is obviously essential to make sure it still subscribes to your hero central.
Language, with stickers, with the sound design, with glass perspective shots, with top-down views, really allowed for a more diverse content mix. And again, creative diversification, always significantly boosting the creative performance, the campaign performance.
Right. We're doing this for results, right? And we underlined the role of creative asset diversification. So clearly, just by adding that Reels language tailored or fit for platform content, we boosted the ad recall that we would normally see with our usual campaign. So it's really the combination and complementarity of those central brand assets as well as the Reels language content. But I think more importantly, given the objective that I mentioned earlier, was that did it have an impact? Did it move the needle when it comes to that younger demographic? And it did, right? We see a plus 13.6 points lift with regards to the particular demographic. And thank God we did, through that language, because it's content that speaks to this particular audience and respecting the brilliant basics of the Meta platform.
Yes, we continue our journey, and this time to India, where we're going to explore another example. Again, it's not a centrally led initiative, but a more direct collaboration with India as a key market.
So here we're focusing on, depending on who's familiar, I think everybody knows Absolut, but this is really a specific brand in India, Absolut Mixers. It's a non-alcoholic carbonated fruit drink, obviously perfect as a mixer. And then we have Sunburn Festival. For those who are fans or passionate about it, it's one of the biggest music festivals in Asia. So this one particular was held in Goa, India, for this partnership. And for us, it's the first time that we were leveraging and unlocking sort of the amplification potential of the Meta partnership to be able to amplify the reach of that partnership between Absolut Mixers and the Sunburn Festival. And so with this, the challenge for us was, we have a great partnership with Sunburn Festival. How do we increase awareness, drive consideration, but also make and strengthen that association between Absolut Mixers as a brand that we have in India, and obviously the Sunburn Festival that was going on in Goa, India at the time.
So for this, we partnered with Blink Digital, an agency specialized in digital storytelling. And together we brought on board creators who use Gen AI technologies, both as production tools, but also as a means of creative expression. So they leveraged Gen AI video-to-video technology to reimagine content, amplifying each music beat with bursts of vibrant colors. So this approach really resulted in a very distinctive, eye-catching content that stood out on our platforms.
And another key element actually of this approach that we had is the way that we approach the selection of the creators, right? We've been talking about creators now in different approaches or ways to engage them. This time we chose to work with hybrid creators, right? So hybrid creators for us are artists that are not only equipped and well-versed and who craft obviously aesthetically and technically advanced content using AI or Gen AI tools, but also they also are able to step into the spotlight in front of the camera and also have that reach and influence with their particular audiences. So it's really a hybrid approach. And it was important for us because obviously the Absolut Mixer and Sunburn Festival, it was key to also show their own personal experience, right, of the festival, their own POV and point of view, more than just the technical prowess, let's say, of the art that they create or the content that they create, thanks to generative AI. So it really bridges the gap between purely just asset or content creation as well as audience engagement. In this case, their following.
Yeah, and to your point, another major difference is that we took things further by leveraging a media solution from our portfolio, which are called partnership ads. This really allows us to amplify the content, tapping into the creator's own audiences through paid media to unlock new reach and new engagement opportunities, like you were saying. So not only was it a first step to have hybrid creators facing the camera, but also leveraging AI, but also utilizing a media solution tool, partnership ads. So
in this case for us, both the creator engagement or partnership as well as the media element of it allowed us to really introduce, a new level of creative diversification for the Absolut Mixers and Sunburn Festival campaign.
Yeah, you can see on the left side, the classic campaign assets planned by Absolut Mixers, including the teaser content, drive ticket sales, announce the festival lineup. And on the other side, on the right-hand side, we had the creators' unique perspectives, amplified through partnership ads, adding really a fresh, immersive layer to the campaign.
So really rich content diversified there for the campaign. And obviously, we have to always see what the results that we got. And in this case, first from just a full activation, because obviously it's a broader activation, we saw really a 3-point lift when it comes to ad recall. When we look at our business, what we call business as usual content, right? So these are the build up to the existing global brand assets. We can see that there was a threefold, obviously, performance between that and obviously the creator content that was run on partnership ads. So this is where, again, the media piece of it, the vehicle, is as important, obviously, as the engaging content that was run. And finally, what we're really happy about, which is also the point of all of this activation, is really massive increase in the improvement in effectiveness from an engagement standpoint. So we really seen massive engagement rates during the campaign versus what we used to see in similar scales of activations. And so, I mean, that's a lot of obviously examples that Marie and I have shared, and also some the nuances in terms of how we've been partnering between Meta and Pernod Ricard. All that to say is the blend, between creativity, right, through the creators, through the tools that are being used, but also the role of AI and the innovation that it's bringing to the space is what's allowing us to obviously almost supercharge, right, the effectiveness and the return from a lot of these activations. So hopefully that gives you a lot of sort of inspiration or reference in terms of what you could possibly do as well with these Skype partnerships and enabled by creators, Gen AI, and your partner platforms.
Thank you so much, Michael Marie. That was fascinating. It's really exciting what you've been able to achieve together, and you really see how these campaigns stand out and how critical the creative element is. I know on our end, we've done some research also talks about Gen Z and how that's such a differentiator, right? That Gen Z won't respond to anything from a brand if it is not interesting. They get bored and they wander off. So I can see I can see how you're speaking to that particular part of your audience, and there's some of what you do. And actually, why don't we stick there? I'd love to see a little perspective on that, because I know everybody's this new set of audiences are really coming into their own in terms of being consumers. How are you tackling that challenge? Yeah,
I mean, maybe I can start, and then Marie, if you want. I think a lot of brands are trying to obviously make sure to address this audience, right? But I think we always say you have to be where your audiences are, and part of it is not only the platforms, right? Part of it is also the language and codes that they consume content, whether that's entertainment, news, information, etc. And this is exactly what you were saying. The reason why this speaks to these audiences is that we have to adjust also the way we storytell a lot of those campaigns and messages from the brand. It's not going to cut through all of the noise, obviously. There's so much content that's being consumed, especially by this audience, which is a highly digital first and digital native audience. So I think shifting and pivoting the way we see the role of content, but also the role of the platform and the codes and the language, because this is what these audiences speak. And so how do we approach ourselves nearer and nearer to sort of that language that the audience speaks as well? Thank you. I think that's really insightful. Marie, I got a question for you, if that's all right. I think it's clear that you have to optimize creative for digital, but maybe you could talk a little bit about why. And maybe the way you do that is to see some of the things where people go wrong and the perhaps inadvertent impact it has, because it's complicated, right?
Of course. I mean, do you know how much people scroll with their thumbs every day in average as a user? It's almost the Statue of the Liberty. It's really speed dating with content. It's our environments are attention sparse, and we really have to capture a user's attention. So if you don't optimize your creatives, they may be lost in the noise, like you were saying. So making sure that you have the proper language fit for platform is critical, not to be lost in that noise. So how do people actually sometimes go wrong? It's what I was saying as an introduction. Sometimes people approach digital campaigns with a broadcast mindset, with TV first in mind, whereas then it reflects in it forgets the unique characteristics of our platforms, and you may end up having unengaging content or too long content because you want to get your story out there, but you have it in the format of a TV movie or TV spot or TV film. So sometimes it can be too long. The branding comes at the end. This is not the way we work on our platforms. We need to have the branding in the top 2 seconds. It has to be snackable content, short formats. It has to have a hook and then a reason to stay, because otherwise then you're going to just scroll ahead and be forgotten. I think there's some really good specific things that we can all take away, because it's easy to forget, right, when you're creating campaigns. And I think we touched on the audience, and you make beautiful creative for the audience, but then you've forgotten that has to be consumed through all of these different channels and all of these different devices in different languages. And it starts to, all of a sudden, this campaign that looked beautiful, all of a sudden doesn't look beautiful, which is such a shame. It's such a shame, especially when you mentioned, Sarah, in the beginning. It's like, especially during this time, we want to make sure that each thing that we do, really cuts through, right? Because we don't have the luxury to be doing things and amplifying things that don't reach the audiences in a manner that will really,
let them get to know the brand, increase consideration, and hopefully drive sales.
Agreed. So, Michael, let me ask you a question. You're doing some really innovative things in terms of your consumer marketing. I'm sure everybody, and thank you for all the imagery you shared, because it was so important, since this was so focused on what you're doing with creative. And I'm sure as every other marketer, they're drooling over some of the beautiful things you created. But you've taken some risky big leaps here. And I'm sure there are other people sitting here thinking, ooh, so if I try to do that, I think I'm going to encounter resistance within my organization. I'm guessing you both encountered resistance from the look you just gave each other. So perhaps you could share a little bit about how you overcome that when you're looking to make a really differentiated and strategic leap like the one you've made.
It's really a big consideration. And it's not to say that we didn't encounter sort of that resistance, like you said. I think it's more coming from a place of, you can imagine brand marketing teams, for the marketers, obviously in the call, your brand guardians, right? So the first thing you have in mind is how do you stay true to your DNA, to the brand ethos, to your platforms, right? What do you stand for as a brand? How do you represent yourself and materialize visually, the look and feel, and so on and so forth. So as soon as you talk about the role of creators and handing over some piece of that creative work and also manifestation of the brand and the products to other people, obviously there is sort of that either reservation or hesitation or just some questions in terms of how much can you retain yourself from what the brand is from a DNA perspective, and how much you can loosen the reins, right? And so that has been our journey, right? In terms of whether at global brand teams, some of the examples that we shared, but also the local teams that are working either with creators who know the language of the platform, or creators who are now starting to use AI and tech also to enhance their creative process, is what we realize in that whole, let's say, journey, and it's a continuing journey, by the way, is the more sure you are as a brand team and a brand marketer about what your values are, what's the DNA, what's your ethos, what are your platforms, what's your tone of voice, as Marie was saying earlier. I think the more you can loosen the reins and let go a little bit of that control, because like we were just saying right now, I mean, this is a space and this is an audience, especially to those audiences that are really consuming content and entertainment and all of these messaging in a very democratic space, right? It's a highly democratized space where the experience of one creator or one user or one audience would be different from another person. And you have to almost play that as well as a brand while keeping true to yourself. So I think it's that balance in terms of how much or historically we would want to control the brand narrative and the messaging and how we're seen and how it's visualized, and also maybe tapping on the right partners, the right creators, the ones with the same lens and share the same values, and letting them also see how they visualize the brand through their content, through their work, through their videos.
I think also the quality of your brief is key. Also having this test and learn mindset with pilot brands who are more willing to jump ahead, and the data proving also from a brand equity perspective that we are making a change in the right way, helps also encourage this new language adoption more and more. I mean, it's been a journey. We've been working together for a year and a half now, and the process is accelerating now that we have the data proving that it's the way to go. So I guess also the test and learn, the data, having one pilot, having an extremely strong brief on your brand DNA is critical.
So I think it's really interesting. We started the day talking about the importance of data. And every single session, when we come back to really the brass tacks of the foundations, it's the data. It's, do you understand? Do you know your customer? Do you have enough? You probably never have enough data, but can you use that data? Can you action that data? And does that feed everything you do, including the beautiful creatives that you are producing? Because if they don't resonate, then it's just artwork, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, thank you both very much. I think that was really stimulating and really stood out in the crowd today in terms of a really different way of thinking about how you're engaging with customers and what we're doing. So thank you both ever so much for your time. Michael and Marie's contact details on LinkedIn are available on the screen. I know they, like all the other speakers, would be delighted to connect with any of you after the session, answer any questions that we didn't get to, share any insights. I'm sure there are lots more there that we didn't have a chance to tap. But again, Michael, Marie, thank you ever so much for your time and joining us today, and look forward to hearing the next set of the story, because it sounds like there's a lot more to come.